Hi everybody, Brady Joker here, and welcome to 2024. Happy New Year's, as you guys are probably watching this on January 1st. I'm not recording this on January 1st, obviously. But yeah, welcome to the list. Today I'm going to be telling you guys my top 10 favorite movies that were released in 2023. This was hard, to say the least. Now, don't get it twisted. I think 2022 had a great selection of movies, but dude, 2023, wow. And maybe that's because I watched more movies in 2023 than I've ever watched in my entire life. So yeah, I think that this is going to be a very difficult year to rank. And I first want to just tell you guys a couple movies that I wasn't able to see that I think could have possibly been on this list. First and foremost, Iron Claw. I really wanted to see it because it looks phenomenal and it's getting great reviews. Really wanted to check it out. Fortunately, wasn't able to. Zone of Interest, I heard, was great. Fallen Leaves, I heard, was also really great. Dream Scenario and American Fiction, I really wanted to check out. Wasn't able to. And I also just want to tell you guys a quick couple honorable mentions for the list. We have Bottoms, Beau is Afraid, The Killer, and finally, what would have been my number 11, May December. Really upset I couldn't put it on this list, but, you know, this was just a very solid year for film, in my opinion. Anyways, that's enough rambling, other than, of course, this is my personal opinion. This is very subjective, and this is not objective at all. This is a totally subjective list. And yeah, let's just get rolling in with number. Okay, so Maestro is a film that I don't think is getting nearly enough praise as it should. It is getting a very mixed, not even really mixed. This is just getting a pretty overall neutral response. People think it's pretty mid, pretty average. It's fine. Well, I thought it was astonishing. I think Bradley Cooper's direction in this film is phenomenal. All of his different uses of his shots, all of the different one takes, the slow zooms, it really just enhances the work and draws the audience in. Of course, I think Bradley Cooper gives a great performance, but of course the standout here, as everyone's talking about, is of course Carey Mulligan. She gives a standout performance here that will go down as my favorite of hers I've seen. All of the scenes in this film between Bradley Cooper and Carey Mulligan are just full of tension and realism that it just makes me uncomfortable with how real these scenes feel. It's a beautiful and sad story that I don't think is getting enough praise, and I loved it. Next up, we have The Boy and the Heron. Okay, this is Miyazaki's next film, and I haven't seen nearly enough Ghibli as I want to. You know, I've seen Spirited Away, which I think is ever so slightly better than this movie, but I still think this is one of Ghibli's best, at least that I've seen. I've only seen like 6. And I personally just really loved it. First and foremost, the animation is absolutely stunning in this film. Every single scene is so carefully animated and each shot is so carefully placed. I loved it. The movie has very interesting themes of death, which is a very interesting theme for a Ghibli film, at least for what I've seen. I haven't seen many, but all the other Ghibli films always have like this very magical sense of adventure or very fun characters that you can get enticed to. This movie doesn't really have all of that. It's a very realistic, but also very fantastical film with its fantastical world and its fantastical characters. But yet everything feels very real. This has the most realistic depiction of grief and death that I've seen in an animated film, honestly. I think it's great. It's very entertaining. The pacing is great. I loved it. I know a lot of people would have this higher, but Poor Things, yeah, it was great. Now this, number 8 and number 7 were the hardest two for me to place on the list. I went back and forth between Poor Things and my number 7 spot, but I ultimately went with Poor Things at number 8. And that's simply, I think, because I very recently watched Poor Things, and it's a movie that, unlike a lot of the films on this list, I couldn't really pinpoint where I stood on my general liking of the film. I knew I thought it was freaking amazing, clearly, but I didn't know on the scale of amazing it was on. All I know is that it is one of the most, if not the most beautiful looking film of the year, in my opinion. It has the most dynamic performance of the year with Emma Stone, with a lot of fantastic side characters along with it, like Mark Ruffalo and Willem Dafoe, both giving very entertaining performances. And the movie's themes are so big and broad that I can't even really discuss them on this video because I would be here for 20 minutes talking about them. Sexual curiosity, independence, curiosity is all just here, and it's beautiful. And I love the arc that Bella goes through, and it's just really fun to watch. The movie can be very vulgar and explicit sometimes, which very clearly takes some people out. But for me, I think this was a film that just knew what it was, and Yorgos Lanthimos is just a master of his craft, especially after watching The Killing of a Sacred Deer, which is the only other Yorgos Lanthimos I've seen, unfortunately. I haven't gotten around to The Favorite or The Lobster yet, two of which I really want to see, but this film it exceeded my expectations, because from the trailers, I didn't think I would love it as much, but you know what? I walked away really loving this one. Next up, Wes Anderson's Asteroid City. I mean, what do you want from me? This film is like Wes Anderson kind of reflecting on his whole career in my eyes. He takes a lot of themes and narrative ideas from all of his previous films, and he kind of tries to flesh it all out in one big story, and I think he pulled it off perfectly. This movie is a very funny, but also very dark film. It is easily Wes Anderson's saddest film in my eyes. Maybe that and Tenenbaums are like right there, but I think this is his most human film. Jason Schwartzman gives probably his best performance in any Wes Anderson film here, in my opinion, and I love everything about the film. The style of this film is my favorite looking Wes Anderson film, and I've watched it one time since my Wes Anderson ranked, and it still stays where it is. But God, the visuals in this film, the way that they can take this very bleak setting of a desert and turn it into one of the most vibrant places I've ever seen on film is stunning. The ending, the way that it's presented as a stage play, it's all just great. Next up, Oppenheimer has to be on here, doesn't it? Sure, some of you are a bit shocked that this isn't making it, a bit higher up, but I love the film. It's not like I don't love it. This movie is just huge. This and a movie that's a bit higher up on the list than this, these are the biggest movies of the year, clearly. Not even just in terms of scale, but just importance. This movie is about one of the most important men in history. Of course, Robert J. Oppenheimer, and the creation of the atomic bomb. That's pretty big. I could go on and on about the performances and the look and the tone, which is all just perfect in my eyes. But I already made a whole on review, so if you want to check it out, I go a lot more in depth there. The movie was a lot more fresh in my mind when I made that review, so go check it out. All I'm saying is I think Cillian deserves the Oscar. What can I say? Okay, so Across the Spider-Verse. Yeah, it was amazing. Is it as good as Into the Spider-Verse? No, but it's a very amazing successor to that. The animation in this film is quite frankly the best animation I've ever seen in any movie ever. I love Miles's story and his arc through this film. How he wants to help out everybody else. He wants to help, he wants to join this force, he wants to join, and then by the end he's like, I love every character in this film. Literally every single character in this film worked for me. Every single one. There isn't a single dull character here. Spot is one of the best villains in any animated movie. Miguel is a great secondary antagonist that I think works really well. He's really scary. His voice actor does a great job here. I love Miguel. And of course, Spider-Gwen and Miles' chemistry here is top tier, just like it is in Into the Spider-Verse. I think this film is beautiful, and it does so much with the experiment of animation, and it just paid off perfectly in my eyes. Next up, Anatomy of a Fall. Now, this film did a lot of things for me, and I think it's one of the best of the year. You go into this film very much so expecting just a very typical courtroom drama, and it is that. But it also dives into so much deeper things that is just like, you need to watch it because it has so many layers. Depression, relationships, guilt are all things that I feel Sandra Hüller's character is going through in this film. And I think Sandra Hüller gives one of the best performances of the year with her character here, because she does so many things. She needs to be in control. She feels in control in scenes, but then she also has this panicked and guilt to her that the movie leaves completely ambiguous. And that's another thing. The movie doesn't force feed it into you like, okay, so this moment you think she did it, the next moment you think she didn't. No, the whole movie is ambiguous with it, that you don't know through the whole movie. You are constantly on, wait, did she? I don't know. You're constantly in a panicked state, which I think is brilliant. The son here also gives a very talented child actor performance here, who is absolutely devastating in this role as well. Because obviously, I'm sure it's not easy for him, the character, with his mom being on trial for his dad's murder, and it's just really sad and really good to watch his morals be reflected as he comes to his decision by the end, and it's really freaking good. The way the movie looks is very beautiful and very controlled at times, and it just feels and flows very nice from one scene to the next. I really dug this film. If you haven't seen it, I cannot recommend it enough. Go watch it. Next up, the most realistic portrayal of a relationship and them breaking is Past Lives has to be up here. It's just an absolutely devastating film that just shook me to my core with its relatability and its realism and its just pure depiction of relationships. It's just an absolute beautiful tale of love and how it can spark and how it can break. And it does it in such a way where it just makes you think about your own personal experiences, and it makes you reflect on your whole life. And it's beautiful in that way because every scene is set up to make you feel that way. And it's just like, dang, that's insane. This movie hit me like a brick when I watched it earlier this year. I mean, it just did things that I hadn't seen in a movie. And a lot of people are saying, yeah, this is an insane directorial debut, and it is. My God, like, I cannot get enough of this movie. The performances is all there. Oh my God, they're so real. Like, that is the thing about this movie, is I know I'm saying it a lot. This movie feels the most real out of any film I watched this year. It feels like a documentary almost, where it just feels like you're following these real people along this absolutely devastating and beautiful story at the same time. And I loved it. Next up, these were the two films in my top two that I knew would be my top two. And yet, I thought my number one would be my number two on a rewatch. But no, Killers of the Flower Moon is number two. Now, I haven't seen all of Martin Scorsese's work, but this is, in my eyes, his most important and his biggest movie he's ever done. What could I say about this film that hasn't already been said? The performances, Lily Gladstone, Leo, De Niro, it's all there. The editing, oh my God, how can someone edit a film to where it's a 3.5-hour film and it feels like a 2.5-hour film? It's absolutely incredible. The film looks absolutely stunning. The story here of the Osage is something that I think Scorsese needed to do, and he did it perfectly. I couldn't stop thinking about this movie for weeks after I watched it. I loved it so much. It's such a beautiful but devastating tale. Absolutely tragic. And there's so many just raw moments in this film that I love, where it's just Leo and Lily just talking, being connected, being a family. And then knowing the darker undertone just makes it even more depressing. This film is something that absolutely needs to be viewed because it is, in my opinion, the most important movie of the year. And if you haven't seen it, you need to do yourself a favor and check it out. And yet, The Holdovers is the film that meant the most to me this year. Look, I know this might be very anticlimactic because compared to things like Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, heck, even Across the Spider-Verse, this film feels very small in compared to those. But the movie's performances, its scenes, its tones, it's just all perfect. I can't think of a single thing I don't like about this movie. It's all perfect. I rewatched this recently because I thought that maybe I would not like it as much on rewatch. Nope, Nope, not even close. I think this might be one of the most heartwarming films I've ever seen. Paul Giamatti, Dominique Sissa, and of course Da'Vine Joy Randolph here. One of the best trios in any film I've ever seen. The film reels you in with its interesting and unique form of presenting itself, like this movie that was actually from the 70s, and it does such a good way of reeling in the audience and then just drawing them in with these very realistic and relatable characters who all have layers. They are all very layered and complex characters that I cannot help but love watching. I could rewatch this movie endlessly. I think it is absolutely hysterical. Anytime Paul Giamatti goes on his history rant, it makes me crack up every single time. Dominique Sissa gives one of my favorite actorial debuts I've ever seen from an actor. He absolutely smokes this role, and I'm not seeing many people talk about him in this film, but I think he did a phenomenal job as Angus, as this angry, depressed, but trying to be this very funny guy. You understand his character through this movie and the pain he's in, and it's phenomenal. Da'Vine Joy Randolph pretty much has that Oscar secured in the bag in my eyes. Her emotions and the trip that she goes on in this film is just, I can't even put in words how much it affected me. It's insane. This movie just did something for me that no other movie in this list ever did, and it just made me feel seen. I loved it, and I'm sorry, I loved it. And that's my top 10 movies of 2023. Did you agree? Did you disagree? Tell me in the comments below your top 10 best of 2023. And I hope you guys had a great 2023. And yeah, I'll see you guys with more videos in 2024. And I hope you guys had a great rest of your day, evening, or night, or whenever you're watching this. And I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.